Today we're going to be upgrading this audio amplifier. This is a McIntosh MC602. This is an audiophile, as in a good way, an audiophile grade amplifier. This thing can put out 600 watts at 0.005% total harmonic distortion. And what we did with this amplifier, we had done a light upgrade kit. Originally had bulbs, and the bulbs don't last forever, and it's kind of a maintenance chore to upgrade the bulbs. And this has otherwise been a great amplifier. We might prophylactically install a new switch. There's one that might be a little bit dirty. But we had done a light upgrade kit, and it very well matched the original bulbs. Probably, unfortunately, better than than McIntosh did, matching their own color scheme. So while we're in there, we're gonna put one more gel on each side just to match it up, cool it down a little bit in color temperature, and we're gonna do a handle upgrade. Oddly, these handles were never meant to be on this amplifier, and so, but they look a lot better in that they match the rest of the equipment. The sad thing is about this is McIntosh had changed the finish on this, and this is actually media blasted and probably clear anodized after, because it would be my hands would be black if it wasn't. The originals were actually satin, like they ran a belt sander with a pad over it to get that nice satin finish. As you can see, this is not a petite amplifier. As a matter of fact, this is a $5 bill in comparison, and it weighs at least 120 pounds. There's a funny story that I was actually in a McIntosh store, and I had picked up the front of this, tried to pick up the front of the corner of this, and I said and just picking up the front is hard. And I said to the person in the store, I said, this thing must weigh at least 120 pounds. And he looked at me and said, wrong, it's 140. And I would have liked to have been around when he figured that out. Anyhow, we got it out, we got it dusted off. So generally this thing is, you've got two massive banks of heat sinks here. And inside each one of these, you've got rows of MOSFETs, most likely MOSFETs, if not audio transistors. I suspect they're MOSFETs. Inside each bank of heat sinks here, you've got some central circuitry, you've got a main power transformer, and on each side you have an autoformer on each side, so you can select multiple impedances. Like this is actually currently hooked up to electrostat, so it's set to a low impedance of like 2 ohms, I believe. And then you've got a control box in front, which we'll be working on. I removed all the perimeter screws from the amplifier. As far as I know, the feet do not have to come off, but these center ones do. Remove the cover. And we have like logic boards in here. It looks like these are two full wave bridges over here. Very heavy wires going to gold-plated connectors over here. And this is where we're going to want to work. So there's connectors that have to be disconnected. The first one is for this is actually for the meter switch. Actually, I'm going to touch the chassis to make sure I'm at the same potential as it. This is the meter switch right here. It has to be removed. And this is the power switch right here, which has to be disconnected. And then there's two in front. I suspect that they're for the meters and the lights. And this is another connector here, probably for the meters. The other one's probably for the lights. And that's disconnected. This is J8, and this is J2, J10, and looks like J9. To remove the front, we have to remove these. There's down here connecting the stainless steel chassis to the front unit. There's 5 screws on each side, have to be removed. 4 of them are easily accessible. They could put little notches in here. The 5th one, not so much. Because I'm trying to be careful with these fasteners to keep them nice. I put the screwdriver in, put a good amount of pressure, keep close to the front, put pressure in the back, and try to keep the screwdriver nice and perpendicular to the surface. And so that way you don't butcher the screws up much. Now we should be able to walk this carefully out, making sure that I have all these wires pulled through. And we're following the instructions. We've lifted up the front of the amplifier and slid the face off, and we've rotated it downward, face down, and now we have to take off. There's 2 remaining big screws on the side and 2 screws on the top, which lets this metal panel come off like that. As with taking the meters out, we're going to take out this bar right here. There's actually 2 Keps nuts that hold this. Keps nut is just a nut that has a built-in washer that rotates a little bit. We have Keps nuts here to take off this bar, which allows us to take off the meters later. I want this out of the way. There appears to be two Phillips fasteners here that hold. There's like all this structure forms a cup that attaches 2 assemblies together. There's one assembly that's these aluminum end pieces, the cover glass, and the handles are actually attached to the aluminum things. And there's actually one cup-like plate that attached to the 2 aluminum extrusions. And then there's another cup-like thing that all this is built off of, and that's attached here with two Phillips screws. And we have to be very careful with this because it's got a very expensive piece of glass in front on each side. Before we take off the, separate the rear assembly, we had to take off the knob. Underneath each knob there's a little felt. In taking off these Keps nuts, I find that it's very hard to distinguish whether or not that this is metric or SAE. This is a 5/16, I believe it is, a 5/16 nut driver, and this is an 8mm. It's very hard to distinguish which is which. Backlight assembly has to be separated from the meter, and we have to take off these nuts here, which are not figure tight. I already got them started. This backlight cable has to be removed. And I'll feed this through here. And there's also another, looks like a little power controller thing. I think that has to be removed too. And I hope, and these are the connectors for each meter, and I want to leave this board in place, so I'm just going to unconnect each meter. Now I think this will come off, and I think the gels will be exposed after this. Okay, that is connected. I just want to make sure this is fed through here. And this comes off like this. And these are actually the LEDs for the backlight conversion. There's actually a little dust in here. So we're going to clean up the gels and put more gels in next time. When I find the screwdriver, I'm going to remove these screws from the top here. Once again, trying to be careful. And I try to get the screws nice. And this lifts out. Can you grab the other side? Like so. Revealing the front glass. That's very expensive. Apparently a light guide. And we've got the front panel right here. Placing the switch on the original switch. This has a little brass thing, which actually 11mm seems to fit this better than SE. This really fits, and I try to hold this switch while we do it. This is the old switch we're replacing. It's actually gray plastic. It just snapped together. It has no heat shrink tubing on the wires, which is interesting. It came with one of these little pins that, one of these little washers that has a pin that locks into the face. Let's see if I can get this in focus. And the new switch didn't seem to come with that. Or actually, it looks like it's facing in. So maybe they give it to you, but they turn it in. There actually is, I think, a washer in here, but it's stuck pretty good. And I think they put the pin on the inside when they ship it. I've got a little piece of Formica, so if I drop the soldering iron, it's not going to burn the carpet. And I checked the wires, and I made sure that I've got the brown here. There's no pin is chopped off here. No connection, black and red. And I heat shrunk the tubing. I shrunk the tubing with just a lighter, being very careful not to get anything too hot. And I wish I had a hot air reflow station, but I don't have one. interesting how involved this is getting at this point. If you look way down there, you'll see that we've got a bunch of individual bowls and that little blue thing to sort out the screws with. We're at the point where these are the fasteners for the handles that bolt right through the aluminum extrusions, through this steel plate, through the extrusion into the handle, and they appear to be 3/16, which fit perfectly. Apparently these had Loctite on them. So the handles, the original bolts do fit in the new handles. On each bolt, we're gonna put a drop of blue Loctite, which is actually thinner than I thought it would be. Tight but not butchered. When you're assembling this, these are both 4-pin connectors. Make sure they're not swapped. If this cable is tight, like we had it, that means that it's not right. And then the cover goes on. Trying to be careful with it because the top edge of this does show from the top. When I'm doing stuff like this, I try to make sure the screwdriver fits in really nice. If the screwdriver was worn, I would just throw the tip out and buy another one. Want to keep the screws looking nice. This is only black oxide, and it's not all the way through. It's just a very thin finish on each screw. Before we put on the face, we put a couple rags to elevate it up and to protect the surface underneath. So we have the face plate upside down like it should be because the rest of the amplifier is upside down. Once again, I'm taking one last look at the handles to make sure that the straighter sides are out to the outside and that the canted or beveled sides are actually towards going on the inside. And I'm going to get some help putting this up. This is really heavy, and I don't want to nick up or scar it. We also have to be careful. This is a 1/2 inch thick piece of glass, and it's all water jet. This piece of glass costs hundreds of dollars, I'm sure. As we're doing this, we have to feed in the connectors. There's 5 screws, round head screws on each side, and 2 big ones on the ends. I'm not putting any Loctite in any of the fasteners, except for the handle fasteners and the switch we replaced, because this gets a lot of use, and this is really mission critical. And when you're putting in these screws and actually messing around with the panel, I'll be very careful with this bottom edge of this glass. You may think that it's just glass, and well, as long as you don't break it or chip it, you'll be fine. But as far as I can tell, this glass actually has a coating of paint on the bottom to keep light from leaking to the floor. And usually I tend to hold a screw like this, and you don't want to drop any screws in here. You'd have to take it all apart and take your time and just put it in. These are I think these are going into inserts, but if you really put these really tight, I think it'd be possible to spin an insert, and you don't want to do that. So if you have a screw that's really inaccessible, like the ones right in the corner, you can actually take a pair of forceps and gently just take it like this. So this is the meter switch, and all of these we made after you hook them up. Make sure I would look on each end and make sure you don't have pins showing, because if you get one off, there'll be trouble. Which is probably easier to do with something like this. This is actually for the apparently this is for the meters themselves. This is for the lighting, and making sure that once again there's nothing here. And for the on-off switch, we actually routed it, trying to keep it away from these AC wires here. We routed it under here and put it back where it's supposed to be. Put on the felt, and then the knob. Try not to scratch the glass. So we're going to give it power and give it a shot before and make sure that the lights work well. It's actually hold, watts, and lights off. The meters are inaccurate if the machine is upside down. Bottom on, we put the felts and the knobs on and cleaned it up a little bit, and we're ready to put it back in its layer. It's finished. What we ended up using is 2 gels between each meter and the little light bucket behind it. And it matches pretty much to the the equipment that was made with originally with blue with the blue LEDs, and seemed to have worked out good.